It's official, Kalvin Phillips has signed for West Ham United on loan. Hey guys, welcome to the channel, welcome to another video, and it's the confirmation of the news that we've been expecting for a while in regards to Manchester City's Kalvin Phillips signing on loan for the rest of the season at David Moyes' West Ham United. We've of course heard a lot about the potential of this deal happening. This was even potentially a deal that was being talked about last summer when, of course, West Ham sold Declan Rice and they were eyeing up a potential replacement, and Kalvin Phillips' name was tossed around a lot during the speculation for who might be able to come in and fill the boots of Declan Rice. But it has happened now on loan. Kalvin Phillips has officially signed for West Ham for the remainder of this current season. We're going to be talking all about this big transfer. We're going to be talking all about this big loan signing and West Ham and Man City and Phillips and everything else in between. But before we go any further, I would like to remind you, please like the video and also subscribe if you're new. Both things are always and forever greatly appreciated. And of course, I encourage you guys to get involved in the comment section. Show you have a lot of interesting thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it. That makes for great and interesting reading down below. So do get involved down there. But without further ado, let's talk Kalvin Phillips and this big loan move to West Ham United. First and foremost, in my opinion, Kalvin Phillips, possibly the luckiest footballer in the world right now. Not so much that he got his move to Manchester City, because at the time I felt like it was deserved. I felt like he was really making a proper name for himself at Leeds United 18 months ago. Before, obviously, he made that big, was it £50 million move from Leeds to Man City or somewhere in that region. Well deserved. He was making a big name for himself in the Championship, moved on and took that step forward into the Premier League, of course, was doing really, really well for both club and then, of course, for country as well, as he managed to break through into the ranks of the England national team. But then, as soon as he moved to City, it all sort of, on the pitch, went downhill. He's only made 31 appearances for Manchester City across 18 months, which is not good enough. Big injuries have hampered his career immensely, and it's not been great for him. It's really not. It's been, as far as his development on the pitch goes, it's really stop-started his City career, and it's a big reason as to why he's not played that much. Injuries, and then when he has been fit, he's obviously had to compete with the likes of Rodri, the best CDM in the world, that's particularly in his position. But even if he could play the number 8 role, there's still the likes of Bernardo Silva, Kevin De Bruyne. Last season, they had also Ilkay Gundogan. This season, they've got the likes of Michel Kovacic and Mateus Nunes there, and he's really had to compete with some top footballers and some top midfielders in that role. So when he has been fit, it has been obviously difficult for him to break into the side as it is. But Phillips should have known that right from the off when he did make the signing, that obviously City were going to sign some top footballers in his position. City already had some top footballers and top midfielders in his position. So it really should have come as no surprise to him. And obviously there have been a couple of players that have obviously come through the City youth setup, the likes of Rico Lewis, for example, that have obviously been in his position as well from time to time. He has really found it difficult to cement his place in there. Now, maybe that is because he's gone from being a big fish in a small pond, with all due respect to Leeds, to being a small fish in a big pond kind of thing. Maybe the development or the intense training of Pep Guardiola hasn't exactly matched up to what he would have liked. Maybe he is more of a more freedom-loving kind of player that doesn't like too many instructions, the way that Guardiola probably did in comparison to maybe Bielsa. I don't know. Maybe there is something else behind the scenes as well. But it's clear that Guardiola doesn't really fancy him in that kind of position, even when he is forced to maybe rotate his side a little bit, even when maybe Rodri was suspended, even when Rodri was maybe injured, even when Rodri maybe just needed a rest. It was clear, to me at least, that he didn't really fancy Kalvin Phillips being in that particular role. But other than that, it didn't really hinder Phillips' success. It didn't really hinder his place in the England side either. Phillips was still going on to be named constantly in Gareth Southgate's England teams for friendlies, for European qualifiers, even for big tournaments. his absence didn't seem to really affect Gareth Southgate in the way that Southgate, seemingly at the beginning of his reign as England manager, said that absences and things of that nature possibly would, in terms of obviously picking his England squad overall. That didn't seem to hinder it, and neither did the success. The winners' medals continued to come for Kalvin Phillips, even though that he wasn't on the pitch as regularly as probably what he was hoping for. He is still a treble winner with Manchester City. He is still a Premier League winners. He's still a Premier League winners medal. He's still got an FA Cup winners medal. He's still got a Champions League winners medal. And then, of course, this season he obviously went on to help City win the Club World Cup, of course, that took place in Saudi Arabia about a month or so ago. So, yeah, there is still a lot of good points for Kalvin Phillips' career, but I think on the pitch, he'd be looking to get back out there if that is obviously to be the case. Gary Neville made me laugh. He said that this move might boost his chances of being in the England team. I can tell you this right now. It seemingly is that even if Phillips had 2 broken legs, Southgate would still pick him over a player that's in form right now. So, just saying. I'm just saying. He probably would have still got into that England team for the end of the season anyway. But at least this time it can now be justified. I think this move to West Ham will do him the world of good. I think it will be, I think it will be the perfect size kind of club for him. It's not as, with all due respect to West Ham, it's not as big as Manchester City, but it's bigger than obviously where he was at previously with Leeds. So I think this might be the perfect fit for him. I think with the way that David Moyes plays his football, I think this is going to be perfect for Kalvin Phillips to just slot into, and obviously just bed in really well. And like I say, he can be that sort of Declan Rice type figure where he just has to sit there. He just has to sit there, break up attacks and shift the ball along quickly on the counter-attack. He doesn't have to really think about it too much. He just has to put out fires and shift the ball along, which I think is really where Phillips thrives. And I think he thrives at that, being obviously where he made a name for himself with Leeds. And like I say, if he does manage to stay fit, if he does manage to stay healthy, if he does manage to stay off the injury record of West Ham for a longer period of time, then obviously his place in the England team might be even more justified going forward. And I think obviously that's what these kinds of transfer windows with big major international tournaments at the end of them are all about. And they're all about playing your way into form to obviously be in contention to be picked by your national team. We've seen a number of players move in the past because of that similar sort of belief and notion. Phillips is obviously no real different really, because again, he could have easily stayed on at Man City. He could have probably maybe picked up another winner's medal or 2 at the end of the current campaign, if obviously City are to go the way that they are projected to go. But he's decided that he wants to move away. He wants to move away to West Ham. And like I say, I think this will do good for him. I think that West Ham have found a good replacement for maybe Declan Rice going forward. I think they need to beef up their midfield options anyway. So that ticks both boxes there. But it is only for a loan deal. And the interesting part about this loan deal is obviously that this loan deal doesn't include a buy option, which is interesting. Because obviously, as I always say, and as it's always well known, having a buy option there for the club that he's going to on loan means that the ball is in their court, and it means that the advantage is in their hands. Because if Phillips does well, if Phillips stays healthy and stays fit and becomes this remarkable defensive midfielder that we know that he possibly can be, having obviously seen the potential that he showed at Leeds and a little bit of the potential that he obviously shown at Man City from time to time whenever he could play, they can obviously go and say, we're going to buy him, we're going to trigger that buy option, and we're going to get him on a permanent transfer. And normally that permanent transfer is normally seen as somewhat of as a bit of a bargain price. In this option, in this scenario, there is no buy option, which tells me that West Ham maybe are looking at this as a bit of a cheap deal, as maybe a bit of a safe deal. But at the same time, it's not as big of a gamble as it necessarily would have been if there was a mandatory buy option, or buy clause, should I say. So it does make it interesting that West Ham haven't gone down that particular route, or City played hardball maybe in that, or something along them lines. I'm not necessarily sure how the negotiation worked. But it's very interesting that obviously the two teams went down that route, and it's going to be interesting to see if he can rediscover the form that made him so great at Leeds, and obviously got in that big money move to Manchester City. We know that he's strong, we know that he's physical, we know that he's simplistic, but again, that's not necessarily a dig, that's just him and how he plays with the ball at his feet. He's a very simplistic sort of player, and I guess in that kind of West Ham team, he's allowed to be. You know, when you've got the likes of Mohamed Kudus that is coming back from AFCON, and you've obviously got I forgot Jared Bowen and I forgot the other guy's name, but yeah, they've got some. Put it this way, they've got some skill and flair type players that can do all the creative and all the tricky skills kind of stuff. So he doesn't need to be that guy. He just needs to be the guy that can be behind them to put out the fires, and obviously to shift the ball quickly and transition from defense to attack. And he can definitely do that. He can definitely fill that position and fill that particular role, and he doesn't really need he doesn't need to be that guy. He doesn't need to do anything fancy or anything too rash, too fancy, too skill-like. Just has to basically play the simple game and do the simple things. And I think he'll slot right in with that David Moyes system. And like I say, I think it will put him in good stead to be obviously a bit more of a justification as to why Gareth Southgate may in fact pick him at the end of the season. If he can play his way in some good form, if he can do well at West Ham, which I think that he will if he obviously stays fit and healthy. So we'll wait and see obviously how this turns out. But the big news here is that the confirmation has come through. Kalvin Phillips has gone to West Ham on loan for the rest of this season. I think it will be a good signing for West Ham. But of course, these are just the thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, of this guy. I want to know what you guys think. What do you make of this big news story that Kalvin Phillips has gone on loan to West Ham from Manchester City for the rest of this season? Would love to know what you guys think, your thoughts, your feelings, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it. That will make for great and interesting reading down below in the comment section. Do leave them down there. Otherwise, hit the like button on the way. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're new and want to see more content like this. Both things always and very greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch. This has been another Fletch Talks video, and I'll see you speak to you all again soon in another video, or live stream, or whatever it may be. Cheers, guys. Thanks everyone for watching and listening. Take care. Have a good rest of your day, and I'll speak to you all again soon.